From Soviet divers encountering strange humanoid figures beneath Lake Baikal to the Dyatlov Pass tragedy, where 9 hikers died under deeply mysterious circumstances, to Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 disappearing with 239 people on board, we're counting down mysteries that still defy explanation. The Dyatlov Pass incident. In the winter of 1959, 9 skilled hikers walked into the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union and never walked out. They were led by a young engineer named Igor Dyatlov, and most were students at a technical university. They were fit, trained, and ready for the cold. This fits a list of things that cannot be explained, because the tent they died beside was cut open from the inside, and the people who cut it fled into a freezing night with almost nothing on their feet. They had pitched that tent on the slope of a peak the local people called Dead Mountain. When searchers finally reached it weeks later, they found the shelter half buried in snow. Most of the skiers had run downhill in socks or bare feet. The temperature that night fell to around minus 25 degrees Celsius. No sane person leaves warmth and shoes behind in cold like that. Yet all 9 did at the same moment in a rush. The first bodies turned up near a tree, more than a kilometer downhill from the tent. Others were found later, spread across the snow and hidden in a ravine. The Soviet inquiry closed the case with a line that only deepened the fear. It blamed the deaths on an unknown compelling force that the hikers could not resist. That phrase became the seed for 60 years of theories. The injuries made everything worse. Some of the group clearly died of simple cold, but others had wounds that did not match a fall or a fight. A few had severe chest or skull damage with almost no marks on the skin. One young woman was missing her tongue. 2 of the group were missing their eyes. Doctors struggled to explain how such deep trauma left the skin nearly untouched. Then came the detail that fed the darkest theories. Traces of radiation were found on some of the clothing. The camp sat in a closed, remote zone where the Soviet military carried out secret work. There were quiet rumors of rocket tests and hidden experiments nearby. For decades, no single explanation could cover the radiation, the wounds, and the panicked flight all at once. Investigators floated one wild idea after another. There was talk of a fight among the group, of native tribesmen attacking the camp, of a Yeti in the snow, even of a weapons test gone wrong. Nature and fear blurred together in the retellings. The image of 9 strong young people running into the dark, half-dressed, stayed burned into the public memory of an entire nation. In 2021, a team of scientists offered the strongest natural answer yet, using computer models built partly on car crash tests and animation from a famous film. They argued that a rare slab avalanche could have crushed the sleeping hikers and forced the rest to flee. Later trips to the pass measured slopes steep enough to slide, and even watched 2 fresh slab avalanches form in similar conditions. Even so, the case is not fully closed in the public mind. Relatives and some researchers still press for answers about the radiation and the exact pattern of the wounds. As one recent report put it, the Dyatlov story remains one of the most gripping mysteries even now. Science has offered a strong model, but the raw strangeness of that night still resists a clean ending. 9 people ran from something in the dark, and the best science can do is describe what likely fell on their tent. The rest, their exact final moments, stays lost in the snow. But at least the Dyatlov hikers left bodies and a clear scene to study. Our next mystery left almost nothing at all, and it swallowed far more than 9. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 lifted off from Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing. On board were 239 people, crew, and passengers from many countries. Less than an hour into the flight, the aircraft stopped talking to the ground. This belongs on a list of the unexplainable because a huge modern airliner, packed with tracking gear, simply vanished and has never been fully found. In a world watched from space, an entire plane slipped away. The last words from the cockpit were calm and completely normal. Moments later, the plane's transponder, the device that broadcasts its position, switched off. Military radar then caught the jet, turning sharply away from its planned route. It flew back across the Malay Peninsula, cut across the country in the dark, and headed out over open water, away from every airport it was ever meant to reach. There was no distress call, no warning, no sign in those final recorded minutes of a bomb, a fire, or a struggle. A machine that the whole world could usually follow on a screen turned itself into a ghost. For the families waiting in Beijing, the arrivals board simply stopped making sense, and their long nightmare began. What kept the search alive were faint signals from a satellite. Even after the plane went dark, it kept sending brief automatic pings, sometimes called handshakes. Experts used the timing of those signals to trace a long curved path into the southern Indian Ocean. That thin trail of data pointed towards some of the deepest and most remote water on the planet, far from any shipping lane. The hunt that followed became one of the largest and most costly searches in aviation history. Ships and aircraft combed tens of thousands of square miles of cold, deep sea. Month after month, they found nothing. Then, more than a year later, a piece of a wing washed up on a beach on Reunion Island. Over time, a handful of other fragments were found scattered across the far side of the ocean. Yet the main wreckage stayed hidden. So did the black boxes, the recorders that hold the cockpit voices and the flight data. Without them, no one can say for certain what happened during those final hours, or who was truly at the controls when the aircraft made its turn. The most important evidence sank into darkness. The most common theory points to a deliberate act by someone on board. Some analysts note that the captain had practiced similar southern routes on a home flight simulator, a detail that many found chilling. Others argue for a sudden fire or a loss of cabin air that could have left a silent ghost plane flying on autopilot until its fuel finally ran dry over the sea. Families of the missing have lived in a cruel kind of limbo ever since. There were no bodies to bury and no clear cause to blame. Some relatives spent years searching for answers on their own, funding private efforts and studying every scrap of debris that reached the shore. Each new piece raised hope and then delivered only more silence. An entire aircraft became a whisper of satellite pings and a few broken parts on distant beaches. The ocean kept everything else, but water does not always take it all. Sometimes it leaves a whole ship behind, sitting upright and calm, with meals still on the table and every single person gone without a trace. In December 1872, a British ship called the Dei Gratia spotted a vessel drifting in the Atlantic near the Azores. It was the American brigantine Mary Celeste, and it was moving strangely, with no hand at the wheel. This earns a place on our list because the ship was found seaworthy and fully stocked, yet completely empty of every soul who had sailed on her. The sea had taken the people and left the ship. The Mary Celeste had left New York on November 7, bound for Genoa in Italy. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7 experienced sailors. Briggs was known as a careful, sober man who did not drink and who would never abandon a sound ship without a powerful reason. He had written home just before sailing, pleased with his vessel and crew. When boarders from the Dei Gratia climbed aboard the drifting ship, they walked into a scene that made no sense. The cargo of over 1,701 barrels of alcohol sat mostly intact. There was roughly 6 months of food and water. The crew's personal belongings lay undisturbed in their quarters. Charts had been tossed about, but the people were simply, impossibly not there. The single lifeboat was gone. That was the loudest clue in an otherwise silent ship. It suggested the 10 people had climbed off on purpose, in a hurry, rather than being carried away by force. But it raised a much harder question. Why would a skilled captain leave a floating, well-supplied ship for a tiny open boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? Small details deepened the unease. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 10 days before the vessel was found, placing it near the islands. A length of rope trailed in the water behind her. 9 of the alcohol barrels were later found empty, and those happened to be made of a more porous red oak wood. There were no signs of fire, storm damage, or violence anywhere aboard. The court in Gibraltar spent more than 3 months on the case. The attorney general there, a man named Solly Flood, suspected foul play and murder, but the evidence never supported it. No bodies were ever found. There was no blood, no broken lock, no clear crime. The investigation ended with far more questions than answers, and the mystery only grew. Over the years, theory piled upon theory. Some blamed pirates, but the valuable cargo was untouched. Some blamed a mutiny, but the crew had no reason and would not have left the ship behind. Writers filled the gap with fiction, including a young Arthur Conan Doyle, whose dramatic tale only mudded the real facts in the public mind for decades. The most sober modern idea is an accident born of fear. Leaking alcohol may have released fumes, and Briggs may have ordered everyone into the lifeboat, terrified of an explosion. Another version points to a faulty pump, clogged with coal dust, and a bad reading that made him think the ship was sinking. A snapped rope in rough seas could then have doomed them all. It remains a careful guess. A captain, his family, and his crew stepped off a safe ship and vanished into nothing. The ordinary details, a sewing kit, everyday meals, tidy bunks, make the emptiness feel almost staged by a ghost. But at least the people of the Mary Celeste chose to climb into that lifeboat, our next couple did not choose the water at all. They were left in it alive. On January 25, 1998, an American couple named Tom and Eileen Lonergan joined a dive trip on Australia's Great Barrier Reef. They were fit, experienced divers near the end of a long journey home from volunteer work overseas. They belong on this list because their boat, the Outer Edge, motored away and left them alone in the open sea, and no one on board noticed they were gone for 2 full days. The trip was meant to be the adventure of a lifetime, a chance to explore the world's largest reef. The crew took a head count that somehow came up wrong. 2 divers had jumped into the water late, and the numbers got tangled. The engines started, the boat turned for the coast, and the stretch of ocean where the Lonergans surfaced held only sky and waves in every direction. Picture the moment they broke the surface after their dive. No boat ahead, no boat behind. Just the flat blue line of the horizon and the slow sinking, understanding that the vessel that carried them out there was already gone. They were roughly 40 miles from the coast, in deep water known for large sharks, with only their dive gear between them and the sea. For 2 days, no alarm was raised at all. The truth came out only when someone found their bags still on the boat, holding their wallets and passports. By the time the search began, a huge air and sea effort could do little but scan an ocean that had almost certainly already taken them. Aircraft, naval vessels, and helicopters swept the area for 3 days and found no living trace. Over the following months, the sea handed back small, heartbreaking clues. Dive jackets marked with their names washed ashore. So did an air tank and one of Eileen's fins. A wetsuit turned up torn along the seams, worn thin by long weeks in the water. Each item told a piece of the story, but none of them told how it ended. Then a fisherman found a diver's slate, the small board used for writing notes underwater. On it was a message that turned a tragedy into a nightmare. It said they had been abandoned by the MV Outer Edge and begged anyone who found it to please rescue them before they died. The date on the slate was 1 day after the dive. That single date proved they had survived the first day. They did not vanish in an instant. They floated and waited and hoped, while a boat that should have circled back never came. How long they lasted after that, no one knows. The official finding was that they died of exposure and drowning, alone, with no realistic chance of rescue in that empty water. The skipper, Jeffrey Nairn, faced a manslaughter charge and was found not guilty. The dive company admitted negligence and later shut down for good. Australia changed its rules so that strict head counts became law. Some cruel voices claimed the couple faked their deaths, but their untouched bank accounts and unclaimed insurance quietly destroyed that idea. Their bodies were never found. The story later inspired a well-known film about divers left behind at sea. 2 people surfaced from a beautiful reef into total abandonment, and the water kept them. That is the horror of being lost while still alive. Our next mystery is the opposite. Nothing is missing. Instead, an object sits safely in a library, and not one living person can read a single word of it. The Voynich manuscript. Somewhere in a locked room at Yale University sits a small book that has beaten every code breaker who ever opened it. It is called the Voynich manuscript. Careful dating places its pages between about 1404 and 1438, making it roughly 600 years old. It makes this list because it is written in a script no one has ever decoded, in a language that may not even exist. It is a message with no known reader. The pages are filled with looping, flowing handwriting that behaves like a real language. The letters repeat, cluster, and follow patterns you would expect from a genuine human tongue. They do not look like random scribbles. Yet in 6 centuries, no scholar, spy, or scientist has ever matched the writing to any known language on Earth, living or dead. Around the strange text sit even stranger pictures. There are plants that do not grow anywhere in the world, with roots and leaves no botanist can name. There are star charts and circular diagrams of unknown meaning. And there are pages of small human figures bathing in green pools, connected by odd tubes and channels, a section experts simply call the biological pages. The list of people who have failed to crack this book reads like a hall of fame. Professional cryptographers have tried and lost, so have some of the same experts who broke real enemy codes during the Second World War. In recent years, even artificial intelligence has been aimed at the pages, hunting for any hidden order that human eyes might have missed. They have found teasing hints of structure, The word patterns behave a little like a real language, which argues against the idea that it is pure nonsense. But a hint is not a translation. Every bold claim to have finally solved the manuscript has crumbled under close review. The book quietly defeats each new champion and keeps its meaning locked away. That long history of failure raises a sharp question. Is this a genuine text in a lost cipher or a forgotten tongue? Or is it a clever hoax, built centuries ago to look like sense while saying absolutely nothing? Both sides have brilliant supporters, and neither side has ever produced the proof that would finally end the argument. The plants only deepen the puzzle. If an artist simply invented them, why invent so many, so carefully, across so many detailed pages? And if they are real, why can no expert match a single one to a known species? The bathing figures and the spinning star wheels add still more rooms to a house that seems to have no doors at all. The Voynich manuscript has become the symbol of the truly undecipherable. It is not lost, it is not damaged. It has been photographed, scanned, and studied by the finest minds available, and still it refuses to speak. Every generation believes its tools will finally crack it, and every generation walks away empty-handed. Here is an object hiding in plain sight, guarding a message that could be everything or nothing at all. It taunts the smartest people alive and wins every single time. But not all mysteries are quiet books in warm libraries. Some come from the deep, cold water, wearing armor, and they do not stay still. The humanoids of Lake Baikal. In 1982, Soviet military divers were training in the freezing depths of Lake Baikal, the deepest lake on Earth. According to reports that survived that secretive era, they encountered tall silver figures far beneath the surface. This makes our list because trained servicemen described creatures that no science can name, deep in water where nothing human should be able to live. And one of the divers did not survive. The accounts describe beings around 3 meters tall, far larger than any man. They wore what looked like smooth, dome-shaped headgear and tight silver suits. Most disturbing of all, they moved through the black, near freezing water without tanks, without fins and without any visible gear, as if the crushing cold and depth meant nothing to them at all. When the divers tried to get closer, the story says the encounter turned deadly in seconds. The figures reacted, and the men were forced upward far too quickly toward the surface. In the retellings, the group scattered in a panic through water. That should have harmed nothing but their nerves. What began as a training exercise ended in fear and loss. One diver is said to have died in the incident. The official record blamed decompression sickness, the deadly injury caused by rising too fast from the deep. Others were reportedly hurt as well. Whatever truly happened in that dark water, it left real harm behind, and a real death that families had to grieve without a clear reason. The trouble is that almost everything about this case lives inside closed files, and stories told years after the fact. Lake Baikal sat within a sealed military world, where secrets were normal and outsiders were unwelcome. Details leaked out slowly, changed with each telling, and were never open to honest outside review. That is exactly the kind of gap where a legend can grow strong. Skeptics point to the obvious problems. Great depth, extreme cold, and the wrong mix of breathing gas can all play cruel tricks on the human mind. Panic can twist what a person thinks they see. A tragic diving death is real and terrible, but it does not, on its own, prove that a silver giant was ever in the water beside them. And yet the story refuses to die. It came from military witnesses, not from campfire storytellers. It ties into a wider set of tales about strange lights and shapes seen over that same vast, ancient lake for generations. For those who believe, the closed and secret nature of the case is not a weakness at all. It is proof of a cover-up. No creature was ever caught. No clear photograph exists. The lake keeps its secret under nearly a mile of dark, cold water, in a place where no one can easily go to check the story. What remains is a chilling account from serious men, and a single confirmed death that no one disputes. Soldiers do not scare easily, and these men swore they saw something impossible in the deep. Believe them or not, the case stands unproven and unexplained. Our next mystery leaves the water for the fog of old London, where a killer moved through crowded streets in plain view and slipped away for good. The identity of Jack the Ripper. In the autumn of 1888, terror gripped the Whitechapel district of London. A killer stalked the poor, foggy streets and murdered at least 5 women in a matter of weeks. The case belongs here because, after more than 130 years of investigation, no one has ever proven who he was. He remains the most famous murderer in history without a face. The murders were savage. The victims, often called the Canonical Five, were named Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Their throats were cut and their bodies terribly mutilated. The violence grew worse with each attack, reaching a horrifying peak with the final killing. And all of it happened in the heart of a crowded city, where the killer somehow left no name. The press gave him one instead. Letters began to arrive, claiming to come from the murderer, taunting the police and signed with the now famous name, Jack the Ripper. Many experts believe the most famous of these letters may have been faked by journalists chasing a story. Even so, the name stuck, spread across the world, and gave a faceless horror a chilling title. Police in Victorian London had almost none of the tools we take for granted today. There were no cameras watching the streets, and no reliable science of fingerprints or blood. Suspects were questioned and let go. Witnesses gave shaky, clashing descriptions in the gaslit dark. After each attack, the killer seemed to simply melt back into the thick London fog and disappear. Over the years, the list of suspects grew huge and strange. It ranged from local doctors and butchers to poor immigrants, and all the way up to members of the royal family and secret societies. Whole books have been written to accuse one man, only to be torn apart by the next book accusing another. The suspects change with every generation. Modern science tried to close the case with DNA. Some researchers claimed a match to a Polish immigrant named Aaron Kosminski, but the DNA claims are heavily disputed. The evidence is old, possibly handled by too many people, and open to doubt. No court and no wide agreement among historians ever accepted it as the final answer. Part of the horror is how ordinary the setting was. This was not a lonely castle on a hill. It was a crowded, noisy slum where people lived shoulder to shoulder in tiny rooms. And still a butcher of women came and went at will, passing close to many people, seen by some and known by absolutely none of them. The Ripper became the model for the killer who cannot be caught. He gave rise to endless novels, films, walking tour, and suspect theories that still fill bookshelves today. In a strange way, he is famous precisely because he was never named. The empty space where his identity should be is the whole legend. A monster hid inside a city of millions and was never unmasked. The fog took his face and kept it forever. From a mystery of who, we now turn to a mystery of why. One drawn in giant lines across a desert, on a scale so vast you can only truly see it from the sky. The Nazca Lines, in the dry plains of southern Peru, lie some of the strangest artworks on Earth. They are the Nazca Lines, a sprawling set of shapes and figures scratched into the desert floor. They make this list because they were built by the ancient Nazca people over 1,000 years ago, and the full purpose behind them is still argued over today. We can see them clearly, yet we cannot say for certain why they exist. The lines were made between roughly 500 BCE and 500 CE. The artists removed the dark stones on the surface to reveal the pale ground beneath, drawing long straight paths, wide shapes, and enormous animals. Some of these figures stretch for hundreds of meters across the flat, empty land, holding their form across distances that would challenge modern surveyors. There are giant images of a hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, and many more. Standing on the ground beside one, a person can barely tell what they are even looking at. The designs only snap into clear, recognizable pictures when seen from high above. From an aircraft or a nearby hill, that single fact is the heart of the whole puzzle. Why would a people with no aircraft create art meant to be viewed from the sky? They could never float above their own work to check it or admire it. And yet the shapes are clean, well-planned, and correct across huge distances. Somehow, ancient hands laid out perfect creatures they themselves could never fully see from the ground. Scholars have offered careful and serious ideas. Some believe the lines mark points on a calendar, or line up with the stars and the changing seasons. Others think they were sacred paths, walked slowly during rituals, or tied to desperate ceremonies, begging for water in a harsh and thirsty land where rain meant survival. Wilder claims also swirl around the desert. A few have suggested ancient visitors from the sky used the lines as signals or landing strips. Mainstream experts firmly reject this. They point to the simple wooden stakes and cords that show how humans, working patiently from the ground, could indeed plot such massive shapes without any help from above. Modern research keeps finding more. New surveys and drones have revealed additional figures that were missed for centuries, hidden in plain sight across the sand. Each fresh discovery adds to the scale and the wonder of the whole vast canvas, and suggests we may still not know the true size of what the Nazca left behind. Still, no single answer covers everything. The exact meaning of each figure, and the deeper reason so much effort went into art, no one on the ground could fully enjoy, remains open to debate. The desert holds the true intent of a people who vanished long before anyone thought to ask them why. An entire civilization poured its labor into messages aimed at the sky, and we can only guess who they were meant for. Wonder can be that strange and that patient, but some ancient sites promise not meaning, but treasure. And one small island has swallowed lives and fortunes for over 2 centuries, chasing exactly that. The Oak Island Money Pit. Off the coast of Nova Scotia sits a small, wooded island with a deadly reputation. On Oak Island, legend says, a deep shaft holds hidden riches guarded by clever traps. It makes our list because for more than 200 years, treasure hunters have dug and dug, and the island keeps its secret while taking their money, and at times, their lives. The prize, if there is one, has never been found. The tale began in the 1790s, when local men reportedly noticed a strange sunken spot in the ground beneath an old tree. As they dug down, the story goes, they struck layers of logs set at regular depths, roughly every 10 feet, as if something had been carefully buried far below, by unknown and patient hands long before they arrived. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Diggers spoke of odd layers of coconut fiber and putty, of a stone marked with mysterious inscriptions, and of scraps of metal and even bone pulled from the mud. The site earned its famous name, the Money Pit, and the dream of buried gold took powerful root in the local imagination. Then the island seemed to fight back. According to the legend, the shaft was rigged with flood tunnels that connected secretly to the sea. When hunters dug too deep, seawater rushed in and drowned their work. The pit filled faster than any pump of the age could ever hope to empty it, turning every dig into a desperate race against the ocean. Those flood traps, whether clever design or simple nature, turned the hunt into a decades-long battle against the water itself. Fortunes were spent on ever bigger machines, deeper shafts, and larger crews, and the island demanded a darker price. Over the years, several people died in accidents, while chasing the promise of whatever might lie at the very bottom. The theories about the treasure are as wild as the traps. Some say it is pirate loot, buried by men who sailed these waters. Some say it holds the lost wealth of the Knights Templar, hidden across the ocean. Others whisper of secret documents, royal jewels, or Masonic mysteries sealed away forever from the eyes of the world. In modern times, the hunt turned into a long-running television show. Teams with heavy machinery and cameras have pulled real artifacts from the mud and soil. Bits of old metal, worked wood, and even coins have surfaced over the seasons, keeping the treasure fever alive and burning for a whole new global audience of viewers. But no grand chest of gold has ever been confirmed. After more than 2 centuries of digging, the central prize, if it truly exists, still stays just out of reach. Every promising clue seems to lead only to another question, another flooded shaft, and another expensive dig into the stubborn ground. An island turned simple human greed into an endless machine, spinning for generations with almost nothing to show for it. Sometimes the ground itself is the puzzle. That is even truer of our next stop, a bare circle of dirt deep in the woods where, the locals swear, nothing living will grow. The Devil's Tramping Ground, deep in the woods of North Carolina, lies a bare, round patch of earth that local people have feared for generations. It is called the Devil's Tramping Ground. It makes this list because, according to long-standing local reports, plants will not grow inside that circle, and no one has ever fully proven why. A small ring of dead ground has held a dark reputation for a very long time. The spot is a roughly circular area where the soil sits empty and lifeless, while the thick forest crowds close all around it. The name comes from an old belief that the devil himself paces there at night, walking in slow circles while he plots his evil, and that his burning steps scorch the ground where his feet fall. Visitors have long shared eerie tales about the place. Some claim that objects left inside the ring are mysteriously pushed out of it by morning. Others speak of a heavy, uneasy feeling that settles over them in the clearing, of dogs that refuse to step inside, and of a strange hush that falls the moment they enter. Science has poked at the legend more than once. Tests on the soil have searched for salt, chemicals, or other natural reasons. A patch of ground might turn barren and stay that way. But the results have been mixed and unclear, never fully settling the question of why this one circle in the forest remains so stubbornly and completely bare. There are calm explanations on the table. A high level of salt in the ground can stop plants from taking root and growing. Heavy foot traffic from decades of curious visitors can pack the soil down hard and kill off any new shoots. A simple natural quirk of the land could account for a good deal of it. Yet none of these has closed the case to everyone's satisfaction. The circle has kept its shape and its emptiness for a very long time, through many seasons and many tests. To the people who live nearby, ordinary wear and simple chemistry feel far too small an answer for a spot carrying such a dark old name. Part of the strange power here is how modest the mystery looks. There is no monster, no missing aircraft, no undecipherable code. There is only a ring of dead dirt among the trees. And still, generation after generation, curious people drive out into the woods just to stand at its edge and wonder what keeps it empty. The devil's tramping ground survives on story as much as on science. It is the kind of local legend that simply refuses to fade away, half folklore and half stubborn fact, sitting quietly and patiently in the North Carolina woods while the world argues over it. A patch of ground that will not bloom is a small mystery casting a very long shadow. It reminds us that the strange can hide close to home, in ordinary places. But some strangeness comes from far above, in the night sky over a quiet Peruvian town, where glowing spheres once danced in formation. The Chulucanas UFO phenomenon. In 2001, the skies over the town of Chulucanas in northern Peru lit up with something the local people could not name. Witnesses described glowing red and orange spheres moving together above them. It joins this list because so many residents reported coordinated lights performing odd maneuvers, and no firm, agreed explanation ever emerged from all the reports and the investigations that followed. The sightings were not a single flash in the dark that could be waved away. Over a period of time, people across the area watched strange balls of light appear above the town. They do not drift like random sparks. Instead, witnesses said they seem to move with purpose, shifting position and grouping together in ways that ordinary aircraft simply do not. For a small town, it was a deeply unsettling series of events. People stepped outside their homes at night to look up at a sky that had suddenly begun to feel alive and watchful. Word spread quickly through the community, and the case soon drew the attention of the people in Peru who study such reports seriously. Peru has a long and serious history of interest in unexplained aerial events. A local researcher named Dr. Anthony Choi was among those connected to the wider investigation of such cases in the country during that era. The Chulucanas lights became one more file in a nation that, unlike many others, treats these sightings as a genuine subject worth careful study. Investigators looked hard for the usual suspects. Ordinary aircraft, weather effects, burning gas, and simple tricks of the eye are always the first things a careful researcher tries to rule out. In a great many UFO cases around the world, one of these plain explanations quietly accounts for the whole event once the initial excitement finally fades. But the Chulucanas sightings did not fold neatly into an easy box. The specific movements that witnesses described, combined with the sheer number of people who saw them over time, kept the case from being simply waved away. It settled instead into that uncomfortable middle ground reserved for the truly and stubbornly unexplained. Cases like this one always split people into two firm camps. One side sees clear proof that something unknown shares our skies with us. The other side sees ordinary things misread by excited crowds staring up into a dark and confusing night. Both sides can argue loudly, and neither has ever been able to fully prove the other one wrong. What makes Chulucanas stick in the memory is the sense of order in the lights. Random flashes are easy to dismiss as planes or stars, but lights that seem to move as a coordinated team are far harder to shrug off, and that is exactly what many honest witnesses swore that they had seen with their own eyes. Glowing spheres arranged themselves in formation over a small Peruvian town and then were gone, leaving only questions and unease behind. From strange lights low in the sky, we now climb higher still, all the way to the roof of the world, where a single famous photograph captured a footprint that should not exist. High in the Himalayas in 1951, a British climber named Eric Shipton took a photograph that would fuel a legend for decades to come. On the snowy slopes near Mount Everest, he captured an image of a huge, human-like footprint pressed into the ice. It makes this list because that famous track has never been fully explained as anything ordinary, and no one has closed the debate since. The footprint in the picture was large and remarkably clear, sunk into the high-altitude snow. It looked oddly like a human foot, but far bigger, with strange and unsettling proportions. Shipton placed his ice axe down beside it to show the scale, and that single striking image traveled around the world and helped launch a global fascination. For many people, this photograph was the best proof yet of the Yeti, the creature also known as the Abominable Snowman, said to haunt the high Himalayas. Here was not a shaky, second-hand story told over drinks. It was a clear photograph, taken by a respected and experienced mountaineer in one of the most remote and untouched places on the entire planet. The idea of a large, unknown creature living in those mountains was already very old. The local people had long told of a hairy being that walked the highest and coldest passes, appearing in their stories for generations. Shipton's photograph seemed to give that ancient folklore a solid, printable form that skeptical outsiders could finally hold in their hands and examine. Skeptics offered a calm and reasonable answer. A perfectly normal animal track, such as the print of a bear or another mountain creature, can melt and grow in the strong, high-altitude sun as the edges slowly spread outward. A plain and ordinary print can swell into something that looks huge and strange. That, they argue, is all the famous photo truly shows. Others were simply not convinced by that explanation. To them, the shape in the photograph looked too defined, too much like an actual foot, to be dismissed as a simple smear of melted snow, and it seemed to fit far too neatly with the countless other Yeti reports that had come out of that same rugged region over many long years. The trouble is that a footprint, however striking and clear, is still only a mark left in the snow. No body has ever been found. No living Yeti has ever been captured or filmed. Beyond any reasonable doubt, the photograph remains the very peak of the physical evidence, and in the end, it is still just a single print in the ice. Later expeditions searched hard for the creature and came back empty-handed every time. Hair and tissue samples gathered over the years have almost always turned out to belong to known and ordinary animals. The mountains guard their secret, if there even is a secret to guard, high above the easy reach of solid proof. A single footprint kept a worldwide legend alive for over 70 years, and no one has yet closed the book on it. Belief and doubt still stand, toe-to-toe in the snow. Now we leave the frozen mountains behind for the quiet countryside of England, and a former military base that many believe hides its own dark secret deep underground. In the quiet English countryside sits a former military site called RAF Rudloe Manor. To many of the people who study such things, it carries a heavy and dramatic nickname. It has been called Britain's own answer to Area 51. It makes this list because rumors say it hid secret work on unexplained aerial reports, and much of what happened there stayed sealed away and out of public view for many years. The manor and its grounds have a very real military history behind the legend. Beneath the surface lies a network of tunnels and underground rooms, dug out and used over the years for genuine defense purposes during tense times. That hidden, buried quality, all those secret spaces below the peaceful fields, is a large part of what first gave the place its strange reputation. Over time, stories grew that this was where the British government secretly handled reports of unidentified flying objects. Some claim the site was tied to the study of strange aircraft, or even to the recovery and quiet examination of unknown craft that had come down. The talk of a hidden British Area 51 took firm hold among researchers and believers. Much of the mystery here feeds directly on secrecy itself. When a place has deep tunnels, a shadowy military past, and official files that are hard or impossible to reach, the human imagination rushes in to fill the empty gaps. In some minds, every locked door and every classified folder becomes solid proof that something extraordinary is being hidden away below. Official sources have long tried to downplay the wildest of the claims. There is no confirmed public proof of recovered alien craft or hidden reverse engineering work at the site. The most dramatic and exciting stories rest almost entirely on rumor, on second-hand leaks, and on the powerful and lasting pull that any good conspiracy theory tends to have. Yet the interest around the place never fully died away. the strange mix of very real underground structures and a genuinely shadowy reputation kept researchers circling back to it for years. In the whole world of unexplained aerial events and government secrecy, Rudloe Manor became a name that people repeat, debate, and argue over to this day. The heart of this case is not a monster or a wrecked craft. It is the deeper question of what governments choose to keep quiet and why they choose to do so. Heavy secrecy around defense sites is completely normal and expected. But that same secrecy also breeds a powerful belief that the biggest and most important truths are exactly the ones we are never shown. Whether Rudloe Manor truly hid anything strange or simply guarded ordinary military secrets behind its thick doors and its tunnels is still not clear to the public today. The site keeps the calm, green face of the English countryside, pulled quietly over whatever remains of its buried and classified past. A base wrapped in rumor reminds us that some mysteries are made not of monsters, but of silence and locked files. From secrets buried under English soil, we now sink far beneath the waves of an ancient sea, where a giant stone structure waited completely unseen for thousands of years. Around 2013, researchers scanning the floor of the Sea of Galilee with sonar found something enormous hiding in the water below. It was a massive cone-shaped structure built entirely from basalt stones. It makes this list because the huge mound is very old and its purpose is unknown, and it sits deep beneath the surface, hard to reach and even harder to explain. To anyone's satisfaction, the sheer scale of the discovery is staggering. The structure measures around 70 meters across at its wide base and rises roughly 12 meters high from the seabed. Its total weight has been estimated at about 60,000 tons of stone, all gathered and piled into a single deliberate cone shape by someone, for some reason. In the distant past, this was clearly no random heap of rocks tumbled together by nature. The great size and the careful shape point strongly to human hands, working with real intent long ago. Someone gathered and stacked an entire mountain of heavy basalt in what would only much later become the muddy bed of a famous and holy inland sea. Estimates suggest the structure could be thousands of years old, possibly around 6,000 years in age. That would place its unknown builders deep in the ancient past, long before much of the recorded history of the region even begins. And yet, for all its size and effort, no clear written record survives to explain why anyone would build such a thing there. The leading ideas among experts point towards ceremony or burial. Large stone structures like this one in the ancient world were sometimes closely tied to graves or to sacred ritual practices. The Great Cone may have marked something deeply important to its makers, honored their dead, or served some ceremony, whose meaning is now completely lost to us. The greatest problem facing researchers is simple access. The entire structure lies underwater, which makes digging into it slow, very costly, and extremely delicate work. Unlike a ruin standing on dry land, it cannot simply be walked around, mapped, and studied at leisure. Much of it stays firmly locked away beneath the waters of the sea, guarding its answers. Because it is so difficult and expensive to excavate, the Great Mound keeps almost all of its story to itself. Researchers know for certain that it is there, that it is truly huge, and that it is very old. What they do not know, and may not learn for a long time, is who exactly made it, or what on earth it was meant to do. It is a strange and humbling feeling to know that something so massive sat completely unseen for so many thousands of years, revealed only when modern tools finally looked carefully below the calm surface. The water had quietly hidden an entire ancient monument in plain sight. For the whole of human history, a giant stone cone waits patiently under a famous sea, guarding the true intent of a lost and forgotten people. Ancient builders leave us guessing at their purpose, so too does our next site. A long line of stones between two nations that may be the work of nature, or something far older and stranger than any history book records. Between the southern tip of India and the island nation of Sri Lanka stretches a strange chain of shoals and stones. It is known by two names, Adam's Bridge and also Rama's Bridge. It makes this list because people still argue fiercely over whether it is a natural formation or an ancient man-made structure, and no answer has ever fully settled the long and heated debate between the two sides. The formation is a line of shallow reefs and submerged stones that reaches across the narrow stretch of sea dividing the two lands. Seen from high above, it looks almost eerily like a broken causeway, a path that might once, long ago, have connected the Indian mainland directly to the island lying just across the water from it. That striking appearance is tied to a famous and ancient story. In the great Hindu epic known as the Ramayana, a mighty bridge is built across the sea by a devoted army. Many people believe that Adam's bridge is that very structure, raised by countless faithful hands in the distant past, to allow a legendary and heroic crossing of the water. Scientists, for their part, tend to lean toward natural causes for the formation. Chains of sandbars, coral, and stone can form in shallow tropical seas through the slow, patient work of tides, currents, and shifting sediment over vast stretches of time. Under this careful view, the so-called bridge is simply a natural ridge that the sea itself shaped over countless ages. But the dating and the fine details keep the debate very much alive. Different studies have offered different ages for the formation and for the various parts that make it up. Some observers point to features they insist look far too regular and ordered to be the product of pure blind chance, feeding the strong and lasting belief in ancient human builders. The question carries deep meaning for a great many people. To some, proving the bridge is truly man-made with tie a beloved and sacred story to solid physical ground. To others, it is simply a striking and beautiful piece of natural geology that folklore later claimed as its own. Both sides hold to their view with real passion and conviction. What makes this particular case so special is how it sits directly at the crossroads of faith, history, and hard science. It is not merely a dry puzzle about the origin of some rocks in the sea. It is a much larger puzzle about how myth and land can meet and blur, and about how genuinely hard it can be to cleanly separate the two. Modern imaging and careful study keep returning to the site again and again, yet a final, widely agreed answer stubbornly stays out of reach. The stones lie half hidden beneath the shallow water, offering up a shape that hints, maddeningly, at both natural formation and deliberate design at the very same time. A long line of stones between two lands may be a cherished legend made real, or simply the sea's own quiet handiwork, misread by hopeful eyes as a bridge. Belief and geology remain locked tightly together here. From an ancient crossing over water, we now move to a lonely lighthouse where, the stories say, a long-dead keeper still walks his post. On the rugged shore of Michigan stands the Big Bay Point Lighthouse, a place with a heavy and lasting reputation for the supernatural. Guests and staff there have long reported strange and unsettling events within its old walls. It makes this list because so many separate people describe an apparition tied to a former keeper, and no ordinary, natural explanation has ever managed to silence the steady stream of stories. The tales center on the ghost of a man once responsible for tending the light. Visitors speak of a shadowy figure glimpsed in the halls, of a heavy presence that seems to linger in the older rooms of the building. Some connect it directly to the sad and difficult history of a keeper, who is said to have met a dark and tragic end at his lonely post. The reports include all the classic signs of a genuine haunting. Objects are said to move on their own when no one is watching. Doors open and sounds echo with no clear cause behind them. People describe sudden cold spots in warm rooms and the strong, creeping feeling of being watched, as if the lighthouse is never truly empty, even when the living have gone to sleep. Lighthouses make powerful and natural settings for such stories. They stand utterly alone against the wind and the water, filled with the memory of hard, lonely, and often dangerous lives. When a keeper suffers or dies at his isolated post, the human imagination easily and eagerly keeps him there, still climbing the stairs and tending the lamp long after his death. The Big Bay legend has grown steadily through many years of guest accounts. The building later served for a time as a place where travelers could stay overnight, which naturally meant more visitors passing through and, in turn, many more reported encounters with the unexplained. Each new first-hand story added another layer of weight to the growing reputation. Skeptics, as always, offer familiar and reasonable answers. Old buildings creak, settle, and shift constantly as the temperature changes. Drafts move through hidden gaps and create sudden cold spots. A mind that already expects to find a ghost will very often find one lurking in every shadow and every unexplained sound. Expectation, they argue, does much of the haunting all by itself. Yet the belief endures, largely because the accounts are so remarkably consistent over time. Different people visiting at completely different times and knowing nothing of each other describe strikingly similar figures and similar events. That repeating pattern is exactly what turns a single scary night into a lasting legend that draws people from far away to experience it. No ghost has ever actually been proven to walk those old halls. There is no captured spirit, no photograph, no piece of undeniable proof that would settle the matter for good. There is only the steady, sincere stream of witnesses who swear, year after year, that the keeper never truly left his light at all. A lighthouse that will not let go of its dead keeper is a story built slowly from many separate voices over many long years. The living keep meeting the past there on the shore. And strangely enough, another Michigan lighthouse tells almost exactly the same haunted tale, as if the Great Cold Lake itself somehow collects and keeps its ghosts. Beneath the gleaming modern towers and the shifting golden sands of Dubai, some people claim there are much older secrets waiting quietly to be found. The idea points to lost settlements or ancient trade sites buried far under the desert floor. It makes this list because the claims describe hidden ruins beneath the sands, and the real truth is tangled up in deep layers of history that are genuinely hard to reach and confirm. The region around the Persian Gulf has a very long and rich human story behind it. Trade routes and settlements have crossed these lands for many thousands of years, long before the modern city rose. Over such an enormous span of time, older places can easily be covered over by drifting sand, by newer waves of building, and by the slow, patient erasing work of time itself. In mystery circles and online videos, that long history becomes a thrilling promise of buried cities just waiting below. The thought is genuinely exciting to imagine. A gleaming, futuristic modern city might sit directly on top of entire forgotten worlds, with lost streets, homes, and structures sealed away beneath the very ground that busy people walk across today. The reality, as usual, is more careful and less dramatic. Deserts are notoriously hard and unforgiving places in which to dig. The sand constantly shifts, covers, and hides whatever lies beneath it. Any genuinely older layers would sit beneath these difficult conditions, and confirming a true lost city takes patient, expensive, and careful archaeology, not simply a good and exciting story. That said, the idea of historical layering is very real and well documented. In many old regions of the world, cities were built directly upon older cities, again and again through the centuries, each new one resting on the buried ruins of the last. The real mystery lies in exactly how much survives below Dubai, and how much is simply legend stacked on a thin base of fact. The most dramatic claims, the ones describing grand and complete hidden cities, remain firmly unproven in the popular telling. What is genuinely clear is that this land holds a long and important human past, and that sand is remarkably good at keeping that past hidden out of sight until someone finally digs deep enough to reach it. Part of the strong appeal here is the sharp and striking contrast. Dubai stands as a global symbol of the brand new, all glass and steel and dazzling speed. The very idea that something truly ancient sleeps quietly beneath it turns that shining image completely on its head. It adds a real shiver of wonder to all that modern shine and glamour, until careful, funded excavation either confirms or finally denies the tales. They must sit in the gray zone between real history and hopeful myth. The desert keeps its many layers pressed down firmly and quietly, offering the curious world only hints and rumors rather than any solid, satisfying proof of what waits below. A modern marvel that may well rest on top of buried worlds is a mystery about what exactly lies beneath our very feet. Sand hides its secrets extremely well, but water can hide even more, and our next stop returns us to a haunted Michigan light, where a keeper's ghost is said to announce himself in a very particular way. Also standing on the cold Michigan shore is the St. Joseph Lighthouse, another old beacon wrapped tightly in ghostly reports. Much like its haunted cousin further up the coast, it has gathered a long and detailed list of strange experiences over the passing years. It makes this list because visitors describe apparitions and unexplained events tied firmly to the site, with no clear or ordinary cause anyone can point to behind them. The reports coming from this particular lighthouse include some unusual and very specific details that set them apart. People there have spoken of the sudden, strong smell of cigar smoke drifting through the air, with absolutely no source for it anywhere in sight. Others describe pieces of furniture that seem to move on their own, and shadowy figures that appear briefly and then simply fade away into nothing. As with so many of these haunted places, the stories link back to a former keeper of the light, or to some past tragedy connected with the dangerous sea. The lighthouse becomes a kind of stage where old sorrows and old losses seem to quietly replay themselves, felt keenly by the living people who happened to pass through its rooms. The specific smell of cigar smoke is a genuinely striking and memorable touch. It is oddly personal and human, the kind of small, exact detail that feels like a specific man rather than a vague, drifting spirit. That single strange detail is a large part of what makes the St. Joseph accounts linger so strongly in the minds of those who hear them told. Placing this lighthouse apart from the other one earlier in our countdown was a deliberate choice. Two very similar hauntings, sitting right next to each other on the list, would blur together and lose their edge. Kept well apart, each one holds on to its own distinct weight, and the strange pattern of hauntings all along Michigan's shores becomes its own quiet, larger puzzle worth noticing. Skeptics, of course, again reach for the natural answers close at hand. Strong smells can carry surprising distances on the wind. Old wooden floors shift and settle constantly with the weather. Memory and simple suggestion can slowly turn a single strange moment into a full ghost story that grows and gains detail, with each retelling around the region over the years. Still, the accounts persist and steadily pile up over time. The remarkable consistency of the reports across so many different visitors is exactly what keeps the legend alive and breathing. When many complete strangers independently report the very same odd cigar smoke and the very same moving objects, the easy and comfortable natural answers slowly start to feel a little too thin to fully satisfy. No spirit has ever actually been proven to haunt the St. Joseph Light. There is only the steady, sincere testimony of those who felt something there that they simply could not explain to themselves, and the cold shiver that seems to follow so many of them all the way back home afterward. A second haunted lighthouse deepens the strange pull of Michigan's lonely shores, almost as if the Great Lakes there gather more ghosts than any coast reasonably should. From hauntings we can walk right through, we now plunge down into the deep, dark ocean, where some people claim a truly gigantic pyramid rests silently on the seafloor. Far out in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, some reports describe a massive, pyramid-shaped structure resting silently on the distant seafloor. The claims often tie it to deep and remote sites scattered across that enormous ocean. It makes this list because the idea points to a possible lost civilization or a natural formation, and the real truth lies far too deep beneath the waves for any easy proof to reach it. The stories speak of huge, pyramid-like shapes hidden far below the surface of the water. In the most sensational and exciting tellings, these structures are directly linked to deep ocean sites and framed as powerful evidence that some unknown people once built on a truly grand scale, long before the rising sea finally rose up and swallowed all of their impressive work. For those who believe an underwater pyramid would be a genuinely world-changing discovery, it would strongly suggest advanced ancient builders now completely lost to history, their great monuments drowned and forgotten. The very thought pulls hard at the same deep sense of wonder that surrounds the ancient ruins we can still visit on land, only this time sunk far out of easy reach. The scientific caution around these claims is strong and important. The deep ocean remains one of the very least explored places anywhere on our entire planet. It is a dark, crushing, and staggeringly enormous environment. Only a tiny fraction of the vast seafloor has ever been mapped and studied closely, which leaves a huge open space for both real discovery and for wild, tall tales to flourish. Nature is also a genuine master sculptor working down there in the dark. Volcanic activity and ordinary geology can create surprisingly regular and geometric shapes, without any help from human hands at all. A formation that looks convincingly like a pyramid from a single blurry sonar scan may in fact be nothing more than the everyday work of the restless earth, not the mark of any lost people. That is precisely why these particular claims sit under such a heavy cloud of doubt. Sensational reports very often race far ahead of the actual solid evidence supporting them. Without clear, close-up study and hard, reliable data gathered on site, a striking sonar shape or a dramatic second-hand story is simply not the same thing as a genuinely confirmed ancient monument beneath the sea. Yet the ocean truly does earn its deep sense of mystery, honestly. It genuinely is vast and overwhelmingly unseen by human eyes. Real, strange, and unexpected structures really do lie hidden beneath the surface in various places around the world, and that simple, solid fact keeps the door open. just wide enough for real wonder to slip quietly through it, until proper, well-funded deep-sea exploration actually reaches these specific claimed sites and returns to the surface bearing real evidence. The Pacific Pyramid must stay firmly in the realm of the unconfirmed. It remains, for now, only a suggestive shape in the deep darkness, far more open question than any kind of settled answer. A drowned pyramid may be a genuine lost wonder of the ancient world, or simply a trick of stone and shadow, waiting patiently in water. Far too deep to easily go and check, the sea holds its biggest secrets. The tightest of all, and now, at last, we reach number 1. The strangest and most obscure case of them all, where a 2014 expedition met something they could never name. We end our long countdown with the most obscure and deeply unsettling case on this entire list. It comes from a reported 2014 expedition and a strange encounter on a place called Mount Nagani. It takes the very top spot because it is the exact mystery you were promised. All the way back at the start, an account of strange entities in the fog that fits no known explanation anyone has ever managed to offer. The story describes a group of explorers who set out onto the mountain and met something up there that they simply could not understand or explain. Witnesses spoke of shapes tied closely to a heavy, rolling bank of fog, of dim forms that seemed to circle slowly around their group, as the thick mist steadily closed in around their path and cut them off from the world. Unlike the famous and well-documented cases earlier in this countdown, there is very little solid record here to lean on for support. This is high strangeness in its rawest and purest possible form. It is an obscure report, extremely thin on any hard proof, and that very thinness is exactly what makes it so genuinely hard to either explain away completely or ever confirm. Think carefully for a moment about what such an encounter would actually feel like to live through. The air turns suddenly cold and white all around you. Sound itself goes strangely flat and muffled in the dense fog. And then, right at the very edge of your sight, something moves in a slow, deliberate circle around your whole group, always staying just beyond the point where your straining eyes can properly lock onto it. That is the essential shape of the account that survives. It is not a clear, solid monster standing in bright daylight, but a presence that is felt and only half seen, wrapped completely in weather that hides far more than it ever reveals. The fog itself becomes both the stage for the drama and the perfect mask for whatever the frightened explorers truly believed was out there circling them, because the report is so obscure and so poorly documented. It naturally invites a great many hard and skeptical questions. Thick fog can badly twist ordinary shapes and distort familiar sounds. Real fear and deep exhaustion, felt on a lonely and remote mountain, can easily turn harmless shadows into circling stalkers. A simple trick of the tired mind in such bad conditions can feel utterly and completely real in the terrifying moment. And yet the case survives, right here in the collection of the truly unexplained, precisely because it stubbornly refuses to resolve itself. There is no clear footage of the event. There is no captured creature to examine. There is no tidy or satisfying ending to the story. There is only the sincere account of people who climbed up a mountain and came back down describing something that, by every rule we know, should not have been there with them. That is exactly why it earns the final and highest place on our entire list. It is not the most famous mystery gathered here, not by a long distance, but it is easily the most stubbornly and completely unknowable of them all. Where other cases at least offer us wreckage, or bodies, or a strange book to study, this one offers almost nothing at all but the raw memory of a shape in the mist. So there it is at last, the thing that circled them in the fog on Mount Nagani, still unnamed and still completely unexplained to this very day. From a slashed tent in the frozen Urals to a whisper of movement in a cold mountain mist, all 20 of these cases share one single cold and simple truth. They left their strange marks on our world, and then they left us with nothing but questions. If any of these truly haunted you, tell me down in the comments which one you believe will finally be solved one day and which one you think never will.